Hi, Christ Community Church. My name's Brian. I'm a pastor in central Alberta in Canada, and I'm also a good friend of your pastor, Pastor James. And James asked me to share a 2-minute devotional as a way of offering encouragement and hope to your congregation in these uncertain times. On Sunday, I'll be preaching from the book of Nehemiah, and I want to offer you some encouragement that I found in that book. The beginning of the book, Nehemiah is cupbearer to the king of Persia. Many of the Israelites had returned to their land, but Nehemiah remains in Persia. As he does, his brother comes to visit him and gives a report of what's been happening in the land of Israel. Nehemiah 1 verse 3 says, "Those who survived the exile are back in the province and are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and its gates have been burned with fire." Nehemiah hears this news and he's greatly discouraged. He sits and he weeps and he mourns and he fasts. And all these reactions are completely understandable, as they're ones that we might share after we tune into the news and we hear what's going on in our world. The spread of the COVID-19 virus and its global impact and the loss of life that we've seen already can quickly become discouraging. In many ways, it can even seem hopeless. But Nehemiah quickly finds hope, and he does so by turning to Lord God in prayer. He says, "Lord, the God of heaven, the great and awesome God who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and keep his commandments." His prayer continues on for a few verses, but we have a limited amount of time, so I won't read the whole thing. But in this prayer, Nehemiah praises God, he pleads with him to hear his prayer, and then he confesses his sin and the sins of the people of Israel. And then he reminds God, and more likely reminds himself, of God's covenant promises, and he pleads again with God to hear and to respond to his prayer, and to put him in a favorable position with the king. Now, there's so much I'd love to talk to you, but I'm already over my 2 minutes. So let me just say this about Nehemiah's prayer. Our first response to COVID-19, like Nehemiah's response to what he hears about the land of Israel, needs to be to turn to God in prayer. When Nehemiah prays, he receives the strength to face the king and to return to his own land and rebuild the walls. And this is a task they complete in a record-breaking 52 days with a sword in one hand and a trowel in the other. And I believe it's our job today, as Christians, to share the hope of the gospel to a world that is right now without hope. When we look to the world, things seem hopeless. But when we turn to God in prayer, his hope will shine through us. And so I invite you this morning to join with me and with your pastor in turning to God and praying for our communities, our nations, and this world, because Jesus is the one true hope that this world needs.